Hello everybody, time for lecture 17. When sigma is unknown, we estimate it using the sample standard deviation, and a new distribution appears, which is the t-distribution. So we switch to the t-distribution when sigma is unknown. The assumption, however, stays the same. The formula looks exactly the same as before, but sigma becomes S in my SE formula, and the z becomes a t, which will have here not only the alpha over 2, but it is having something else, which is the degrees of freedom. Degrees of freedom tell us which curve in the t family to use. df is calculated as n minus 1, and n is again the sample size, and the degrees of freedom actually represent how many values are free to vary after a statistics has been already computed. The t-distribution looks like the normal curve but has heavier tails, especially for small samples. And as the sample size increases, it will approach the normal distribution. Let's warm up by finding a critical value from the t-table. I want to find the critical value to create a 95% confidence interval where n is equal to 12. So I'm gonna head to the confidence interval header, define my column, which is 95% according to the level of confidence I want in my confidence interval that I'm creating, and I'm gonna define or decide which row I'm gonna read, the degrees of freedom, which is n minus 1, 11. The intersection between now this 11th row and this 95% column is a value which is your target critical value. Now, sometimes you will not find the degrees of freedom in your table. So assume my degrees of freedom was 33, and I don't have here a row in my table when I go down that is having the 33 value. So what you need to do is just to approximate it by the first value in the table that is below 33. So it might be 32. So go ahead and use that. If there is no 32, but there is a 31, go ahead and use that 31. Now, these are quick practice values to build familiarity with the table. Find again the critical value from the t-distribution where n is equal to 14, and you want to create a 90% confidence interval. So you will head to row equal to 13, which is n minus 1, and the intersection between this 13 row and the column which is labeled by the 90% will have a value which is your critical value. In this case, T alpha over 2 is the degrees of freedom equal to 13, which is 1.771. And for that one, 95% confidence interval and sample size 6, you will head again to row 5, and the intersection between row 5 in your table and the column which is having a header equal to 95% will have your critical value in this case, which is 2.571. And lastly, you can also find the critical value when n is equal to 22, and you want to have a confidence level of 99% in your confidence interval that you are creating to estimate again the unknown mean or the true mean. This is a small sample with unknown sigma, perfect for the t interval. And because here n is small, smaller than 30, so we need to assume normality. This example we have seen when case 20, when Dot was trying to estimate the evidence timing for her coding attempts. She had a sample of 12 decoding attempts with a mean of time equal to 18.4 and second, and S, the standard deviation from these 12 attempts was only 3.2 seconds, and she wanted to find at that time the 95% confidence interval for the mu, the true mean of decoding time for her attempts. So what we need to do here is just to plug in the sample standard deviation in the SE formula and to read the critical value from the T table at 11 degrees of freedom row and column labeled by again the 95%, and we have seen in this current lecture that it is 2.201. So putting all of these pieces together in the formula of the confidence interval for estimating mu like that, we will get at this confidence interval, which means now that we are 95% confident that the true mean, which is mu, decoding of the decoding time is between the 16.37 seconds and 20.43 seconds. And always in your interpretation, you would refer to the confidence level or the C%, which we are going to see that in our TI-84 episode. They are calling it the C%, which is a confidence level here. And you need also to emphasize the lower and the upper bound. This is the first one is the lower and the second one is the upper. How did we come at that 16.3? This is the X bar minus the multiplication of these two numbers, which is again the critical value and the SE. However, the upper one is just applying the same formula with the plus sign rather than the negative sign. Another small sample scenario where sigma is unknown, and I need here to assume again normality since my n is less than 30. I do have here 9 evidence bags with an X bar equal to 2.41 kilogram, and the standard deviation of those 9 bags is equal to 0.52 kilograms, and we want to find the 99% confidence interval. I'm gonna just put all of these numbers in my formula for creating the confidence interval for the unknown parameter mu, or the true mean. SE is S over the square root of n again, and it will give you that value. From your table, you would go to the column which is headed by 99% and the row which is headed by 8, which is 9 minus 1, and the intersection between that 8th row and the 99% column will give you the critical value. Putting all of these values in its place in my formula for the confidence interval, it will give me 1.83 and 2.99 kilogram. So I am 99% confident that the true mean of the evidence bag weight is between that value and this value. So this is the end of our lecture. We deduce T when sigma is unknown, and for T I need to use a new parameter or a new value, which is the DF, the degrees of freedom, which is nothing but the n minus 1, sample size minus 1, and we knew also that the T distribution is having heavier tail specifically for small sample sizes, and the confidence interval formula would have S in it, and of course the critical value coming again from the T distribution. This completes the T interval lecture, and next we will move to proportions. Thank you for being here. See you in lecture 18.